Standard Disclaimer by Tom Diriwachter. You think, I'll be famous. That's not how it works. You think about quitting, but it doesn't really work like that either. You struggle for years as an artist while waiting tables at a Times Square barbecue restaurant until, having had just about all you can take, you write a play, Age Out, about struggling for years as an artist and waiting tables at a Times Square barbecue restaurant and having had just about all you can take. And it gets selected for the Chrysalis Festival at Theater for the New City, as fact and fiction become very blurry. Things get downright uncanny when the lead actor, the one playing you, who's about the same age as you and looks something like you and just happens to have gone to Rutgers, majoring in communications with a concentration in advertising, also like you, and even wears the same blue suede Pumas, has a dire prediction for what becomes of his character, you. That's how it works. Burned out after a lifetime in the service industry, including a decade plus at the same restaurant, and having had 4 full-length plays and countless one-acts produced in New York City and Los Angeles, feeling that maybe my career had peaked, with an added sense of urgency as I slipped deeper into my 40s, I'd finally determined it was time to get a real job. This is what I'm contemplating on the deck of the Staten Island Ferry on my way home from a particularly trying Tuesday lunch shift at the restaurant. Arriving at my apartment, I check my voicemail. There's a message from Lissa Mora of Theater for the New City stating that she's interested in including Age Out in the Chrysalis workshop. When I call Lissa back, my intention is to decline the offer, but she's very enthusiastic as she explains how she read upwards of 250 plays in making her selections and persuades me to consider it. A couple days later, figuring I'll give it one last shot, I tell her yes. Under the executive direction of Crystal Field, Theater for the New City is a Pulitzer Prize and Obie-winning theater company located in Manhattan's East Village, with 4 theater spaces and an art gallery. Chrysalis is primarily held in the Chino Theater, featuring a proscenium stage and bleacher seating with a capacity of 73. Chairs are arranged for actors in front of a hot set interior of a working-class home. Age Out is developed throughout the 16-week workshop. The play is cast. Because of my work schedule at the restaurant, I miss the first couple rehearsals and go on Monday, my day off. The set for the current show is a freestanding giant green hand. It's obvious that the director, Jonathan Weber, has a handle on the play. He's finding the humor in it and gets the general tone and pacing. He's choreographed the characters drinking, which complements the stylized dialogue. There's a feeling of camaraderie amongst the cast, which is crucial given the characters have known each other, worked together, and gone out drinking together after work for 8 years. Bob Homeyer, the lead, is a good actor and has charisma and minds the angst necessary for Tim. Also, he reminds me of myself. As I'm packing my bag after rehearsal, Bob approaches with, "You want to hear something funny? My character, Tim, is from New Jersey and went to Rutgers and was a communications major and had 9 advertising credits. And I grew up in New Jersey and went to Rutgers and was a communications major and had," he considers it, 9 advertising credits. "What year did you graduate?" I ask. "88, he replies. "I graduated Rutgers in 86, I say, but I was there in 87 with special permission, making a film." "Is that right?" he asks, catching on to the bigger coincidence. As everyone else leaves, we talk about our mutual New Brunswick haunts, Old Queens and the nightclub. I tell him how I lived off campus in 87 at 76 Lewis Street, right around the corner from the Ale and Witch, where I spent too many nights drinking draft beer and playing pool in the back room. And he says that he was a regular there, and we reminisce about having to use the short queue when shooting on one side of the cramped table. We walk out together, continuing our conversation, and in the lobby he kneels to tie a sneaker, which has come undone, and I see that they're blue suede Pumas, and exclaim, "I have the same sneakers." One night, a miscommunication about a canceled rehearsal results in Bob, myself, John, and Nicholas John Mazza, another of the actors, going to Company, the bar around the corner from the theater. There's a hipster couple fawning over each other at the bar as we sit in a round banquet, drinking beers and running the play for dialogue. Maybe it's the setting or the casualness of the rehearsal or the beer, but Bob seems much more comfortable in the role than earlier rehearsals, and more like me. He's eerily like me, actually. The whole thing seems eerily familiar, except I'm not me. I'm Steve, another character, my friend. During one of Tim's monologues, which Bob doesn't hold back on, I look up, and the bartender, a striking 20-something woman, is leaning on the bar, staring over at us, like she's concerned for Bob, or maybe like we're going to be trouble. Or, quite possibly, she's an actress and curious about the project. When we're done, John and Nick make hasty exits, leaving Bob and I sitting there. Over another round, we establish a time frame for our tenure at Rutgers, confirming that we were both there during the 86-87 academic year, which leads to our musing about having faced one another in pool at the Ale and Witch all those years ago. Feeling nostalgic, I tell Bob that one of my big regrets in life was turning down a fellowship to get my MFA at Rutgers Mason Gross School of the Arts, while I applied to NYU and Columbia Film Schools. His expression is astounded as he tells me that he actually accepted a fellowship and received his master's from Rutgers after applying to NYU and Columbia. Suddenly, like it's very important, Bob asks, "What was the name of your college sweetheart?" The names don't match. During the course of our conversation, we've gravitated toward one another, Bob with his legs crossed and me angled toward him, dangling my foot so that our blue suede pumas make a pair of left feet. I notice that they're similarly worn, indicating that they were purchased at or around the same time, or at least put to a like use, or, metaphorically, that we walked the same path. When I look up, Bob's wearing an expression as though he has a secret. "I think I know what happens to Tim," he declares. What happens to Tim is the question that everyone asks. My reply is always that I don't know. Though it makes perfect sense that the actor playing Tim would be concerned with this, given the actual practice of creating a character bio, it never occurred to me that someone else would attempt an answer. "What?" I finally ask, unable to mask my desperation. "Well, he's done with the restaurant business, that's for sure," he says. "I think you're right," I say. We stare at each other. So, that's it for him. Bob is alone on stage as the audience enters, slumped over his beer and contemplating life. Occasionally, he shakes his head or shifts in his seat. He pounds his fist on the table. Gail and Angelo, friends of mine and regulars at the restaurant, are seated directly in front of me, and Gail turns around and in not quite a whisper asks, "You're not that miserable, are you?" The stress of watching a play about your life with an audience that lived it, including one member whose namesake is on stage, soaks my shirt with flop sweat that doesn't dry until I realize it's a success. After the theater has emptied, Lissa pledges to fight for Age Out to get picked up. A couple weeks pass, as I work on the play and fall back into my routine at the restaurant without hearing anything from the theater. Completing my rewrite, I send Crystal Field the script, imploring that she please keep this intensely personal work in mind when deciding the theater's next season. As the summer draws to a close, I begin to lose hope. One afternoon, during a family meal at the restaurant, I check my email, and there's a message from John with the dates for the show. In my excitement, I announce it to my coworkers, who are all very supportive. Age Out had a scheduled 3-week run. Audiences were enthusiastic, and there was a buzz at the theater. When Backstage did a cover story about me, it really seemed like it was going to happen. The Village Voice panned the play. A review titled "Age Out Hands You Its Wine List" snarked, "The play is apparently based on Diriwachter's own real-life career as a server in a Times Square restaurant. I'd say he shouldn't have quit his day job, but the area's tourists are probably much safer now during meal times." Not only did the critic fail to mention the story or themes of the play, or comment on the acting, directing, set, or anything really, he was mistaken about the playwright's, my bio. Crystal Field publicly responded to the review with, "This writer is a talented writer who will indeed make his mark in playwriting. The play deals with the misery, loneliness, and isolation of these bartenders, waiters in the midst of easy money and crowded venues. It is not a diatribe against restaurant patrons. The author does not agree with his characters. He almost doesn't feel for them. That might be my only criticism of a really enjoyable and thinking play." Since the age-out production at Theater for the New City, I've produced several one-acts, doing the LES Festival at TNC each summer, published some nonfiction, wrote a screenplay, and begun a novel. But I've yet to finish another full-length play, though I've started a couple. This past May, I got into a disagreement with a manager at the end of a shift, and, having just celebrated my 15-year anniversary at the restaurant, walked out, never to return. Currently, I'm getting my MS Ed in Adolescence Education English from the College of Staten, CUNY, reliving this story for a digital literacies project. Maybe one day I'll revisit the play, now that I know what happens to Tim. I think.